The bill came to $43.17. Wendell Cross set two 20s on the counter, folded, the way his mother had taught him. You don't flash money, you place it. He'd been doing it that way for 50-some years and wasn't about to stop now. The woman at the front desk, young, blonde, manicured nails, tapping the keyboard like she had somewhere better to be, glanced at the bills. Then she glanced at him, then back at the bills as if she was trying to reconcile something that didn't add up in her mind. "Checking in?" she said. The word came out flat, not rude, exactly. Just stripped of the warmth they gave to everyone else. "I am," Wendell said. She typed something. Didn't ask his name, he gave it anyway. Cross, Wendell Cross. Her fingers stopped. Not because the name meant anything to her. Not yet. She pulled up the reservation, and her face did a thing. A small thing, the kind people think nobody notices. Her eyes moved from the screen to him and back again, measuring the distance between what the system said and what she was looking at. A man in a canvas jacket. Work boots, worn at the toe. A duffel bag slung over one shoulder, the canvas faded to the color of old moss. No luggage cart, no assistant trailing behind. "Cross," she said again slowly, like she was tasting it. "That's right. And you're—" she hesitated. "Checking into the Hargrove Suite?" "I am." The Hargrove Suite at the Caldwell Grand in downtown Atlanta went for $4,200 a night. 3 bedrooms, a private terrace overlooking Piedmont Park, a kitchen stocked by a private chef on request. It had hosted a former vice president, a Grammy-winning musician, 3 Fortune 500 CEOs in the past calendar year alone. Wendell Cross had stayed there twice before. Both times he'd worn the same jacket. The woman, her name tag said Brittany, looked past him toward the lobby entrance, as if she was waiting for someone else to walk in and claim this reservation. Someone who looked more like what she expected. Nobody came in. "I'll need a credit card for incidentals," she said. "Of course." Wendell reached into his jacket and produced a card. Black. The kind that doesn't have a limit printed on it because the number would be embarrassing. Brittany took it the way you take something from a stranger on the street. Fingertips only, barely touching, she ran it. It cleared in 2 seconds. She still didn't smile. "Enjoy your stay, Mr. Cross," she said, and her voice had the texture of something she'd rehearsed. He'd driven up from Macon that morning. 4 hours on I-75 with a thermos of coffee his daughter had packed for him, a country station playing low on the radio. Wendell Cross did not travel like a man with money because in his own mind, he was still the boy from the Vine Hill neighborhood who used to save aluminum cans in a garbage bag by the back door. Money had come to him late and earned, and none of it had ever felt like permission to become someone else. He was 58 years old. He had started his construction company, Ironwood Build Group, at 31 with a truck, a tool belt, and $11,000 in personal savings. He'd built it contract by contract through the 90s, through the 2008 collapse that had wiped out half his competitors, through everything the market and the economy and the particular obstacles placed in the path of a black contractor in the South could throw at a man. Ironwood now employed just under 400 people. Last year's revenue had cleared $93 million, but Wendell Cross still drove himself, still carried his own bag, still wore the same canvas jacket he'd worn when he was bidding strip mall renovations in 1997. He had a meeting in the morning. That was why he was here. Not to impress anyone, not to be seen. Just a meeting. He took the elevator to the 14th floor, let himself into the suite, and stood at the window for a long moment looking at the park. The trees were going amber and rust. October in Atlanta, that brief window when the heat finally relents and the city exhales. He unpacked his duffel, laid his suit on the bed for tomorrow, made himself a cup of coffee from the machine on the counter, and sat at the desk and went over his notes for the meeting. He was asleep by 10. It started the next morning at breakfast. The Caldwell Grand had a full-service restaurant on the ground floor, Hargrove's, named for the original owner of the building, a man who'd made his fortune in Georgia timber in the 1920s. White tablecloths, heavy silverware, a sommelier who came by at noon to suggest wines. At 7:30 in the morning, it was mostly business travelers, some hotel guests, a few tables of people who looked like they were meeting clients. Wendell had dressed for his meeting, dark suit, blue tie, good shoes. He'd left the canvas jacket upstairs. The host, a young man named Chad according to his lapel, looked up when Wendell approached. "Good morning," Wendell said. "One for breakfast." Chad looked at him the same way Brittany had looked at him the night before, that fractional delay. That small recalculation. Do you have a reservation for breakfast? We do recommend. I'm a guest of the hotel, Wendell said. Room 1401. Chad checked his screen. His jaw shifted slightly. Of course, he said. And then, right this way. He walked Wendell past 6 open tables, good tables, near the windows, to a small table at the back, near the service entrance. The kind of table where you can hear the kitchen doors banging every time a busser comes through. Wendell sat down without comment. He looked at the menu. He ordered eggs, whole wheat toast, orange juice. The server, a woman who never told him her name, wrote it down without looking up. He was halfway through his coffee when it started. The man came from across the restaurant. He walked with a particular posture of someone who has mistaken authority for intelligence, chest forward, chin up, a little too much deliberate weight in each step. He was somewhere in his mid-40s, pink shirt, no tie, a Caldwell Grand Manager badge on his lapel. The name on the badge said Rourke. Rourke stopped at Wendell's table and did not sit down. "Sir," he said. Wendell looked up. "I need to see some identification." Wendell set his coffee cup down, slowly. "I'm sorry? We've had some issues with non-guests accessing the restaurant," Rourke said. He said non-guests the way you'd say vermin, carefully, clinically, like the word itself was doing him a favor by existing. "Hotel policy requires that I verify." "I'm in room 1401, Wendell said. "The Hargrove suite." Rourke's expression did not change. "I understand. But policy. Did you ask anyone else in this restaurant to show identification this morning?" Silence. "Did you ask the gentleman in the gray suit by the window?" More silence. "Did you ask the 2 women at table 4? Rourke's jaw tightened. "Sir, I'm going to need you to keep your voice down." "I am keeping my voice down," Wendell said, and he was. He hadn't raised it at all. That was the thing. His voice was perfectly level, which somehow made it worse. "I am speaking at a completely normal volume. I ordered breakfast. I gave my room number. And you walked past every other person in this restaurant to come ask me to prove I belong here." "I'm not saying." "I know what you're not saying," Wendell said. "That's the point." Rourke straightened. His face had moved from authority to something else now, that particular defensiveness of a man who has been caught doing something he can't quite bring himself to name out loud. "I'm going to need you to step outside with me," Rourke said. "No, sir, I'm eating breakfast. I'm going to have to ask you to leave the restaurant." Wendell looked at him for a long moment, looked at him the way you look at a man when you're deciding how much patience you have left and how you want to spend it. Then Wendell folded his napkin, set it on the table, pushed back his chair. He did not raise his voice. He did not make a scene. He stood up, straightened his jacket, picked up his orange juice, and finished it standing there, and then set the glass back down with a quiet click on the white tablecloth. The whole restaurant had gone very still. People were watching, some pretending not to, some not bothering to pretend. At the table by the window, the good table, a man in a gray suit had stopped chewing. A woman near the front with a laptop had her fingers resting on the keys, not typing. A busser stood in the doorway to the kitchen, holding a tray he'd forgotten he was holding. Rourke said, "Thank you for your cooperation." Wendell said nothing. He walked toward the restaurant exit. Rourke followed 2 steps behind, carrying himself like a man who'd just won something. He hadn't. Wendell Cross went back to his room and sat on the edge of the bed and was quiet for a while. He'd been quiet in moments like this before, had learned to be, had learned it young, in Vine Hill, where being loud when you were angry was the fastest way to have the anger used against you. His father had taught him that. "Son, the man who stays calm in the fire is the man who walks out of it." His father had said that standing at a kitchen table on Macon Street, pressing his good shirt for Sunday, and Wendell had been 9 years old and hadn't fully understood it yet. He understood it now. He called his assistant, a woman named Pauline who had worked with him for 16 years and who had a gift for the particular calm that comes from having seen everything twice already. "Pauline," he said, "I need you to pull the contact for Raymond Wheel." Raymond Wheel was not a lawyer. He was something more specific than that. He was the chairman of the board of Caldwell Hospitality Group, which owned the Caldwell Grand, along with 14 other properties across the Southeast. He and Wendell Cross had known each other for 22 years, since before either of them had much of anything. They had lunch twice a year in Augusta. Pauline came back on the line 30 seconds later. Wendell thanked her, hung up, dialed. Raymond Wheel answered on the second ring. "Wendell," he said, The way you answer when you're genuinely happy someone called. Raymond, Wendell said. I'm at your Atlanta property. There was a half-second of warmth, and then Raymond Wheel, who had not gotten where he was by missing signals, heard something in Wendell's voice and said, "Tell me." Wendell told him, not dramatically, not with extra detail, just the sequence of events in order, the way he'd present a change order on a job site. Brittany at the front desk, the table near the service entrance, Rourke and the identification. When he was done, Raymond Whale was quiet for 4 full seconds. I want to be very clear about something, Raymond said. All right, you are our guest. You're a preferred member, platinum tier, going on 7 years. You are in the Hargrove suite, which you have reserved and paid for. You have a meeting this morning that I happen to know is related to the Whitmore Commons project. I do, Wendell said. The Whitmore Commons project was a mixed-use development on the west side of Atlanta. $74 million in construction contracts, of which Ironwood Build Group held the primary. The Caldwell Grand was, in fact, one of the adjacent properties that would benefit most directly from the development. The hotel's owners had been quietly hoping for the past 6 months that Wendell Cross would choose to hold his project meetings in their building. There was a long pause. Wendell, Raymond said, I am going to call the general manager personally, right now, while we're on the phone. You don't need to do that on my account. I'm not doing it on your account, Raymond said. I'm doing it on mine. The general manager of the Caldwell Grand Atlanta was a woman named Gloria Fitch. She'd been in hospitality for 23 years and had run 3 properties before this one, and had never, not once in 23 years, had the chairman of her parent company call her cell phone at 7:45 in the morning. She answered on the first ring. She's listened. She did not speak for a long time. Then she said, I'll handle it personally. She was in the restaurant in 8 minutes. She found Rourke at the host stand, adjusting his badge, looking satisfied in the way that men who don't know they've already lost tend to look. My office, she said. Is this about the man in my office? Gloria Fitch said again. Now, Wendell's meeting started at 9. It was held in one of the hotel's private conference rooms, a room he'd booked 3 weeks in advance through his assistant, a room the hotel had confirmed 4 times, a room that had been set up that morning with coffee, water, printed agendas, and a view of the park. The people around the table included 2 city council representatives, an urban planning firm from Chicago, a property attorney, and the development director from the Atlanta Housing Authority. They were there to talk about Whitmore Commons, about timelines, contracts, subcontractors, community benefit agreements. They were there, in other words, to talk about Wendell's work. He was the first one in the room. He stood at the window with a cup of coffee, real coffee, from the carafe the hotel had set out, nothing remarkable about it, and looked at the park again. The trees were still doing that amber and rust thing. The October light came through flat and gold. At 9:02, Gloria Fitch knocked on the open door of the conference room. Wendell turned. Mr. Cross, she said. She was a small woman, early 50s, with close-cropped hair and the posture of someone who knows exactly what she's responsible for. I wanted to come speak with you personally before your meeting began. If you have a moment. I have a moment, Wendell said. She came in and closed the door behind her. What happened to you this morning was wrong, she said. She didn't qualify it. Didn't reach for the comfortable cushion of, I'm sorry you felt, or there may have been a misunderstanding. It was discriminatory and it was unprofessional, and it does not reflect how this hotel intends to treat its guests. It doesn't reflect how we intend to treat anyone. Wendell nodded once. The employee responsible has been removed from his position pending an HR review, Gloria Fitch said. I want you to know that I'm personally reviewing the front desk interaction from last night as well. Brittany, Wendell said. Gloria Fitch's face did something small and composed. Yes. I don't need anyone to lose a job on my account, Wendell said. I need them to understand what they did. That will happen, she said. I can promise you that. They stood there for a moment, not awkwardly, just honestly. The Hargrove suite, Wendell said. You know a man named Hargrove built this place in the 1920s. Timber money. I do. He hired black laborers to build it, Wendell said. Paid them 40 cents a day. Wouldn't let them in the front door. Gloria Fitch was quiet. I'm not saying that to you as an accusation, Wendell said. I'm saying it because I think about it sometimes. Who built the rooms that people get to stay in? Who did the work, what they were allowed to keep from it? He looked at the park again. I'm here because I earned a seat at this table, and I'd like that to be the unremarkable thing it ought to be. Yes, sir, Gloria Fitch said, and there was no performance in it. She left, and Wendell turned back to the window, and for a moment the conference room was very quiet. Then his phone buzzed. The Chicago planners were in the lobby. He straightened his tie, picked up his notepad, pulled his reading glasses from his jacket pocket. The door opened and people started to come in, with handshakes and good mornings, and the particular energy of a meeting where real things are about to be decided. Wendell Cross took his seat at the head of the table, not because anyone had offered it to him, because it was his. The HR review concluded 11 days later. Rourke's employment was terminated. The finding used words like discriminatory conduct and violation of guest services standards and failure to apply policy equitably, and every one of those words was accurate, and not a single one of them captured what it had actually felt like to sit in a restaurant eating eggs while a man in a pink shirt decided that your presence was a problem. Brittany received a formal written warning and mandatory sensitivity training, which she completed, and which may or may not have changed anything in how she looked at men like Wendell Cross. Some things training can fix, some things it can't. The Caldwell Hospitality Group issued a statement about their commitment to inclusive hospitality and equal treatment of all guests. Raymond Weil signed it personally. Wendell Cross did not read the statement. He was in Macon by then, back at his desk at Ironwood, going over permit drawings for the first phase of Whitmore Commons. His coffee was in the thermos his daughter had packed, the one with the dented lid that poured sideways if you tilted it wrong. The radio was on low. October had followed him home, and through the window of his office, the pecan tree in the parking lot had gone the color of old copper. His phone showed 17 unread emails. A callback from the city planning office. A voicemail from Raymond Wales saying, "Call me when you get a chance. Nothing urgent." Wendell Cross took a sip of his coffee, set the thermos down, and looked at the drawings. $74 million of work to be done. 400 people counting on him to do it right. He put on his reading glasses. He got back to work. There is a thing that happens to men like Wendell Cross, men who have built something real and carry it quietly, who don't announce themselves when they walk into a room. The world looks at the jacket and the worn boots and the faded bag and decides it already knows the whole story. Decides there is no more to read. The world is wrong about this regularly. Not every man standing at your counter in a canvas jacket is someone whose signature can move $74 million. Most of them aren't. But that is not the point. That was never the point. The point is that the 40 cents a day mattered then, and what happened at a hotel breakfast table in Atlanta in October still matters now, and the distance between those two things is both longer and shorter than most people want to admit. Wendell Cross did not need anyone to know his name to deserve a table by the window. He deserved it the same as everyone else in that restaurant, because he was a person sitting down to eat breakfast on an ordinary Tuesday morning, and that has always been enough. The rest of it, the suite, the contracts, the $93 million, the handshake with Raymond Weil, that's not what earned him the seat. He was born with the seat. It just took some people longer to see the table he was already sitting at.